I wanted this more than being a player. I've still got it in me that I still believe I can go do it again. I actually really enjoy what I do now. I found a lot of peace in what I do. It's a very stressful world, that tour.
Welcome back to the MODUS Super Series, where we continue our series of our pundits in the chair, where we're going to ask about their career, their highlights, their lowlights, and maybe what the future holds for them. This week we have got Matthew Edgar sat in the chair, sat in the spotlight. I tell you what, let's go straight from the start, shall we? And where it kind of all began for you, really.
I've sat in this chair so many times, and speaking about myself now is completely different. So, yeah, but where it began for me was a very random story. I was 7 years old. I was out in Blackpool, and you know, it's like you're a child. You've got to spend every money you've got. You're not going home with any money. I had £1. It was on Blackpool North Pier, and outside there was these sticky dartboards. I said, I want that, and they were like, oh, go on then, spend your £1. And I took the sticky dartboard home, and I put it up on the wall, and I started playing on it. It's one of those, you know, you got to lick it and then throw it, and I played on it that much, it actually lost its suction of the darts. So my parents ran a newsagents, and they had like a wooden dartboard in there, and they went, oh, you can have that wooden dartboard, then go put it up. And I wore that out very quickly as well. So my dad goes, right, I'll get you a proper dartboard. And I started playing on it. I just kept playing and playing, and as I started getting a little bit older, my dad says, well, maybe we need to take you down into an environment that people play darts, which was the local working men's club. We've gone down, we're having a game, and the team captain's come in, and he's gone, will you play for our darts team? Because you've got something here. I weren't allowed to play every game. I was still young, like 13 years old, and there wasn't things like there is nowadays, JDC. There wasn't these systems in place, youth tours, development tours, things like that. So I was playing in the... People were still smoking in those days inside. So I was going to these bars playing. Now, I couldn't play every venue because some venues had restrictions. You weren't allowed in after a certain time. But I could play all the home venues. I could play some of the away. And I ended up winning the local adults singles title the first year I played, and I was within the rankings. They did the top 16 competition, of which I was top seed for, and I ended up building quite a local reputation quite quick. So it just spirals from there. We went through what was then the old system, you know, the Super Leagues, the counties, that sort of thing, until the day came that I actually stepped away from the sport.
I was going to say, because it wasn't just a journey that you've just played darts all your life. You stepped away to take up another profession within sport.
Yeah, 5 years. I was doing wrestling. So I think wrestling was always a really big passion for me, you know, growing up. And it was something I've always watched. I still watch now. I went to WrestleMania this year. I'm going next year. It's something that I love. And when I was younger, I thought this is a chance for me to do this. So I got myself in the gym. I started training. With that, darts took a back seat. I think I struggled with darts in a way, because I struggled with the transition of going from being a young player that won a lot of the youth titles to being you're nothing in the adults game, and I struggled with that. So I was like, right, I'm going to go do the wrestling. And ironically, I trained in Portsmouth, and then I did 5 years of wrestling, and that led to other things. So when you're wrestling, you're training, you're in the gym with people. It's like, well, now we're doing a wrestling class, but actually they've got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class on. So maybe if I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I'll learn something I can put into wrestling. And then from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you get into MMA. And then from MMA, you go, well, actually, I need to be a bit of a striker as well. So now I'm going to do the boxing. So I ended up being in the gym quite a lot in sort of 18 to 23. I was spending an awful lot of time in there. Not that it shows these days, although we're getting back down again. But that was something I had to do. And I take it out of my system, but that I've still got it in me that I still believe I can go do it again.
So what was the reason why you stopped that?
The darts. So my dad still carried on playing. So I come from a darting family, and I didn't even know. So the story of me picking up the dartboard was completely random in Blackpool. However, as I started playing darts and getting into like county and things like that, my nan let me know that actually my granddad was a very big player back in the day, back in the 60s. He played at the Alexandra Palace in the News of the World. He made the quarterfinals of that event. I've got all the memorabilia at home. I've got the darts that he won, the golden darts, the silver darts, the tray set. He was actually one of Unicorn's first ever sponsored players. So my granddad back in the day, I never knew that about my granddad until he'd passed, and so I never had that relationship with him. But ironically, we played sort of at the Alexandra Palace 60 years apart, which great story in itself. But my dad carried on playing, and with that, he was short one night, and he goes, "Matt, can you come and play?" I said, "I don't play darts no more, Dad. What do you want me to go play for?" And I went along and hit an 11 and 13 darter and won 2-0. And I was like, "Oh, maybe I can still play darts. Maybe there's something in there." And from there, I was just like, right, I don't want to play the system. I don't want to play, at the time, the BDO. I don't want to do that. There's only one place I'd want to play, and that was the PDC. And I was like, right, I'm going to give it one go. And if I get in, I get in. And if I don't, I'm going to carry on with the wrestling. And I got into the UK Open and made the 4th round. And then I was like, right, a decision needs to be made here. And I made that decision, and I went out in possibly one of the worst matches that ever exists in wrestling. It was a complete dive, and it doesn't sit right. I want to go back and have another bash.
So when you decide to make the decision to go and play a bit more professionally, you go to Q School. How quickly does that transition of that period where you said, actually, I want to have a go, to then getting the card?
Well, I did it first without the card, because back in the day you didn't need, until 2011 you didn't need a tour card. The system came in 2011, and 2011's when I got the UK Open spot, and I did a couple of pro tours and things. I went to Q School in 2012, and that's when I got my card. And then, but I'd already decided at that point I need to tackle this a bit more sort of vigorously. I got quite a bit of support early on, because, and this is, so when I say, and I get a lot of people message me, and I try and tell the story a little bit in the fact of, when you first start out, and nowadays there's so much money in the game, so many eyes and sponsors, that people almost expect a sponsorship deal straight off. I didn't have that opportunity. We had a family young. I had 4 children at a very young age. So my work that I was doing, working as a coach at the time, and just trading into PE teaching as well, during that period of time, all the money went to them. We didn't have anything. So I wanted to take a gamble and a punt on myself, and I did. And I raised money by selling PlayStation that I had and all my getting different bits. I went, right, I'm going to take this gamble, and I raised £305. That £305, we used to pay £105 a tournament, so I could afford just about 3 tournaments. So I've gone in, first tournament, Michael van Gerwen.
Thank you very much.
6-0. Thanks for coming. Second tournament, I drew a Welsh guy called Steve Evans, good player. 6-0. Thank you. Right, so now I've burnt through the majority of the money that I've raised. I've got 1 go left, so I could only enter one of the Pro Tours out of the 2 Pro Tours that weekend. It was at the K2 in Crawley. I went down and I drew a seed. I think he was number 14 seed at the time. Pime and Andy Smith. Thank you. Brilliant. So from there, I actually won that game 6-5, and I won it with a 1-3-2 finish. Bull, treble 14 tops, never forget it. Next round, lost 6-5 to Michael Rosenauer, good German player. But that gave me £200, which at the time felt amazing, because now I could enter the UK Open qualifiers, which was the 2011 one. And I got down to the point I needed 1 more win to guarantee my place. Michael van Gerwen.
Oh.
Yeah, and I beat him. I beat him to get in the UK Open 2011, and that's the point where I went to the UK Open, got to the 4th round, £2,000. That £2,000 I put in a separate bank account, and I said to my partner at the time, I says, that's not our money, that's my money to play darts. So that money was purely for entering tournaments, travel, hotels and everything. I said, when it's gone, but we're not touching that, we're not taking it out for anything, that is darts money. And from there, I spent 11 years on the PDC tour.
So when did things begin to turn a little bit more? When did you get a bit more backing? When did you feel like you were beginning to turn the page a little bit?
I think people liked that story. So olbg.com, who still back me now, they heard of that story because I was a member of their website. And they was like, right, we want to actually back you. And they would pay for my flights to go to Gibraltar. They'd give me a monthly allowance to help me, so it wasn't all coming out of that £2,000 prize pot. That money just went into that bank as well. Not only that, I hooked up with Kevin Painter, who lived very locally, and I think that was a big thing for me as well, because I knew I was good at a local level, but could I mix it up with the professionals? Now at the time, Kevin Painter was in the top 16 of the world and was practicing together. I wasn't beating Kev, but I was getting close. And it got to that point where I'm looking at it, well, if I can get close to Kevin, who at the time, it was the year he beat Raymond van Barneveld at the World Championship, he had a big run there, and I'm thinking, if I can get close to Kevin, who's sort of top 16 of the world, then surely the people below, I can challenge them and I can beat them. And again, so 2011 for me was the big sort of turning point where I went, actually, I can have a proper go at this.
Mindset's a very interesting thing for you as well, isn't it? Because you came from a different sporting background. You came from that wrestling into darts. Did you feel like that grounding that you had in that sport actually, in terms of the mental side of the game, set you apart from different players?
100%. We see it now with people like Gerwyn Price. Now, in reflection, was I the best? No, absolutely not. But did I know how to get the best out of me? Yes. Now, that got me to about World 58 at a peak, which, some people may say is not great. I think it's amazing. 58th best player in the world at one point in time. The world's a big place. Mm-hmm. And growing up, I wanted to be a professional dart player. Now, you hear stories, don't you? Like some people are just built differently. Like Michael van Gogh wants to be world number one every single year, wants to be world champion. I didn't quite have that drive. I had the drive to be the best version of myself, but I also was happy with the achievement of being a professional dart player. To wake up in the morning and be a pro, that's a lifestyle that I've lived. It's a lifestyle I wanted to live. So to me, that was the achievement.
Let's skip forward a few years to that debut at Alexandria Palace in the World Championship. It was something for you, it probably felt like a long time coming because it took you a few years on tour to finally get that crack. And it felt like maybe the format change moving up to 96 helped you in that path as well.
I was probably one of the players that was in that mid-range category that was sort of missing out. And nowadays it shows like that attention in that mid-range. People say this nonsense, darts has never been as good as it is now. It's always been this good. It's just more exposed. That's the difference. With things that we're doing here at the Super Series, with things that we do, Darts Connect and things, you get to see more names, you get to see things. Now, I don't believe the standard's any better. I think it's the same. You look back through the names, you can't tell me the likes of the Ronnie Baxters and Terry Jenkins and those sort of people aren't as good as the people we see now. It's just different eras and different levels of exposure. When I look at that period of time, and I look at that debut at Ali Pali, that was probably emotional more than anything, because Dave Allen met me at the door. Mm-hmm. And I'm just trying to replay it all in my mind. Dave Allen, because he knew the story, the PDC covered it about my granddad, and in fact, he played there 6 years prior, and he knew I had all the memorabilia. So he took me around, and he was like, because the room it plays now was not the room that my granddad played. He played in the Great Hall, mm-hmm. the one that people keep saying, move the World Championship there, it's bigger, where they put all the trucks. And we went in there, and he's like, Matt, this is where your granddad would have played. The stage would have been here. This is where it had been. And it's just weird standing in a building about to play my world championships, knowing like my granddad 60 years prior stood in there playing in that arena. So that was strange in itself. Now, when I got there, I felt quite at home. I spoke to Luke Humphries about this as well. And I actually felt underwhelmed. And
as in?
When you get there, you expect something's going to happen. You expect you're going to feel nervous. You expect you're going to get drunk. But actually, when I got there, I think I built up the expectation that's going to happen. I actually felt flat. Mm-hmm. I felt nothing. I felt numb. And I thought I'd be nervous. I thought I'd be excited. I thought I'd be energetic. So, got on stage, won the first set. Great, 1-0 up against Darius Labanauskas. Broke him. First leg of the second set. I'm never going to forget this. And then went to absolute pot and ended up losing it. And anyone who knows me knows I'm a massive fan of Christmas. That year, Christmas was cancelled. I was not interested. I didn't even put the tree up. The missus ended up having to do it all. I just wasn't interested. It's amazing how a result like that can affect you.
Then, obviously, around that time, you begin with the YouTube channel, Edgar TV. First of all, what was the brainchild behind that?
Do you want the honest version, or do you want the...
Is the honest version PG?
Well, the honest version begins with a couple of friends coming around the house, and we was having a few libations, and we was just messing around, being lads, Mm-hmm. And I was playing Michael van Gerwen in the Players' Championship Finals on ITV about a week and a half later. And what happened is my friend started interviewing me with the Hoover. Right. Yeah, I told you, it's a weird story. Started interviewing me with the Hoover. And I then said, no, give it here. I'm going to do this. So I've interviewed myself. And then to make it more realistic, we filmed me interviewing myself. And for some weird reason, we come up with the idea of sticking it on YouTube.
Welcome to Edgar TV. I'm Matthew Edgar reporting for Edgar TV.
So I've got a pen and a paper and I've drew out the classic Edgar TV sign. Mm-hmm. You can tell I've had a few libations if you look back at that picture. The da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, remember the classic intro?
Da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na.
And I stuck it on YouTube and then went to bed. And the next morning I woke up and a couple of darts news sites have picked it up. A couple of newspapers have picked it up and it had like 10,000 views. And I've gone, oh no, I've got to take this down. And then I've left it. I thought, I'll leave it. I've got to the Players' Championship finals. Michael Van Gerwen's come over to me. I can't quote exactly the words he said, but he told me to keep doing it. He said it was funny. Do it again. And I'm like, oh, okay then. So I did it for Alexandra Palace. I turned up early to that event. And again, that video did quite well. And I was like, do you know what? I'm actually quite enjoying this because it's given me something different to focus on. Because one of the things about being a professional dart player is the second you wake up, the only thing you've got in your life is darts. And it gave me something new. And I'm someone who likes to learn all the time. When I was coaching and when I was teaching, CPD, continued professional development, was massive for me. I'd always be out doing CPD. So the same thing with this. I felt stale. I've learned, I've doing my darts and I'm not doing anything new. So it gave me something new to learn and to focus on. So it was a bit of fun at first and now it's turned into something quite serious and it's landed me a lot of opportunities.
When did you think actually this is something that could go places?
I think it was the reaction that it got because I noticed I got a better reaction for that than I ever did for playing darts. And then from that, people then wanted to see me play darts because of the YouTube. And it helped me get a deeper understanding for things. It gave me a platform there to obviously speak my opinion on things as well. And it then turned out that there's a large proportion of people that value that opinion. So it's just sort of gone from strength to strength. It's landed me a lot of opportunities. I'm now down at Osterley Park with Sky Sports. I'm here at the Super Series. I'm working with the PDC. I'm working with a lot of like odds compilers in regards to guides and punditry. And it's helped me develop my analyst side of the sport, of which I'm going to blow my own trumpet. I'm not too bad at.
Let's talk about when you dropped off tour at the end of 2021. What was kind of going through your mind at that point? Because you've been on the tour for many, many years. You dropped off, didn't get your card at Q School. I can imagine it was probably the first time in your career where you probably didn't have a full plan or really know what was to come with the game.
So I played Nathan Rafferty. And within 2 hours of losing to Nathan Rafferty, and if I beat Nathan Rafferty, I'd got my tour card. Or I think I needed one leg off of Josh Rock in the final of the Q School, and that would have been it. I'd have got my card. The second I lost that, within about 2 hours, I'd already started signing deals for the next step. It was that quick. So I wasn't panicking. I wasn't nervous about it. In fact, actually, I was looking forward to the opportunities. And when you've been on tour for so long, you're in an isolated world. The tour's an isolated bubble. And actually, when I lost my card, I was like, I wasn't too bothered. I really wasn't. And I've never looked at going back onto the tour. I've never looked at going back to Q School again. I actually really enjoy what I do now. I found a lot of peace in what I do. It's a very stressful world, that tour. And it's not just the time you're there, it's the time of the build-up. And the managing the finances, because you tend to find that, yes, you might earn 30, 40, 50,000 pounds in a year, but that tends to come in clumps. You get a good clump in January, you get your World Championship money in January, but when you then got to divvy that over the 12 months, there'll be some months you don't earn. So it's a lifestyle I'm kind of almost glad to not be in now.
When did the punditry thing come out? What was the first call? And was it something that you were actively looking into going into post playing as a professional player?
Yeah, absolutely. If I was being absolutely brutally honest, I'd probably say I wanted this more than being a player. And that's probably from a young age as well. I'm that kid who used to sit and commentate on the Sega Mega Drive while he was playing FIFA. That was me. Turn the sound off and I'll commentate on my own game. So I probably wanted this more than anything. And maybe the darts was a vehicle to help me get to this stage. But the opportunity was actually through Jason Tame at MODUS. So he asked me to go to his house. Said he thinks there's a couple of things we could do together. And he says, right, this is what I think you could do for me. What could I do for you? And I said, I'd like to have a go at commentary. Do you think you could get me in anywhere? He goes, absolutely. Gave me a chance at the seniors. And then when the Super Series became what it is now, he messaged me, actually on my birthday. I was in Manchester about to go on the Coronation Street tour, as you do. And he messaged me and he goes, how do you feel about being a TV presenter? Ironically, I was going to be you.
Everyone wished it panned out that way.
When I came down, you ended up being the pundit, Chris Mason ended up being the presenter, and I ended up in commentary. And then I've just stayed there.
It was the strangest week, wasn't it?
Yes. And I was actually originally hired to present. So it was an opportunity there that sort of sparked other things off. And then obviously the opportunity here, this has a lot of eyes on it, a lot of people listening to it. There's people tuning in and go, actually, I like what you're doing. Then you get a chance on the Pro Tour, you get a chance on the Women's Series, European Tour last year as well. And I'm informed that there'll be other opportunities coming my way in that. So really, really excited for what the future holds. And like I said, my time's probably more with a mic in my hand than darts.
What happens with the darts? Are they going to get put away for good soon? Or do you think maybe there's still something there, maybe just one final thing that you can maybe say, actually, I've done this and I can happily go into retirement?
I play solo sport, whether it was wrestling, boxing, MMA or darts. I do solo sport. I struggle more with team sport. I love playing football, but team sport. Now, anyone who's played individual sport will tell you that it takes a certain mentality and that never goes. And there'll always be a fight to have. You know, and a lot of the time it's with myself. Like this year, it's like, right, what can I do? I want to do Lakeside because I've got to go for something. And to me, where my level is and for the amount of time I can put into it, that's the biggest achievement I can get now. Because I just don't have the time or the effort to put into doing anything more than that. Now, Lakeside this year, I would say would be my last real go at anything.
The big one.
But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm never going to play again. Now, imagine a professional footballer stops playing and goes to play the five-a-side league at goals. It doesn't mean he's continued to try and progress in something. I've got a lot of friends in darts. In fact, all my friends are in darts, bar about 2 or 3, because it's been my life. It's my main thing in my life. I've been at home with the family or I've been at darts. So I'd like to go see my friends. I'd like to go out with those. We like to travel. We have fun. So, I mean, I've shown you my diary for 2025 already. There's not much time in there until about May. So the chances of me being able to go and actually attack a tour is very limited. But that doesn't mean if I've got a weekend spare, I can't go meet up with people, travel over to the Faroe Islands, for example, and go and play in a tournament. I'll probably be rubbish. And it'll probably wind me up because I'm probably not going to be to a level I expect to be. That's something I've noticed this year and it's been very hard to take. That along with the treatment and everything I've had to have as well, it's been very tough on the mind. But I'll still throw a dart every now and then, but I certainly won't be chasing any goals.
Thank you for your time. It's actually nice to chat like this. Always a pleasure working alongside you. Thank you for watching the latest in our series of chats with our Super Series commentators, talking about their life and times, their highs, their lows, and maybe what's to come. Join us again for our next episode.
My dad's disabled. I'm his main carer. My dad had a fall whilst I was away. There's another worker there. It's quite hard to relax sometimes when you're actually not at work. My parents split up. I just kind of just took it how it was, really. It didn't faze me, I don't think. 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays, so it was just a bit like that, really.
Sometimes I feel like I get more lucky if I wear my lucky trousers.
Yeah, I was gaining like 10,000 subs a month in lockdown.
I got picked on for being different, but when I played darts, I was allowed to be me.
Like, oh, you're running around like a madman, and blah, like, yeah, never seen you so happy. I was like, what?
I did actually give him a little bit of advice. Can you remember what I said, Mason?
So stop moving your body.
No, said stop missing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to actually, I'll put it there later. I'll end up pulling it off the wall. I told you.